International students are a valuable asset to this country. They are bright, young individuals that enrich our communities and bring significant social, cultural, and economic benefits. They deserve the best. They deserve world-class academic experiences that they sought out and hoped for. And Canada is renowned for that. Sadly, this has not always been the case. It's unacceptable that some private institutions have taken advantage of international students by operating under-resourced campuses, lacking supports for students, and charging high tuition fees, all the while significantly increasing their intake of international students. Today, I am announcing 3 principal measures. 1, a temporary 2-year cap on new international student permits. It is the latest in a series of measures to improve program integrity and set international students up for the success in order to maintain a sustainable level of temporary residence in Canada as well. To ensure that there is no further growth in the number of international students in Canada for 2024, we are setting a national application intake cap for a period of 2 years. For 2024, the cap is expected to result in approximately 364,000 approved study permits, a decrease of 35% from 2023. In the spirit of fairness, we are also allocating the cap space by province based on population, such as that some provinces will see much more significant reductions. We'll continue to work closely with those provinces and territories to put these measures into place, as they will be responsible for determining how the cap is distributed between its designated learning institutions that they have jurisdiction over. I've had productive conversations, in particular with British Columbia and Ontario already, and we all recognize that more needs to be done to protect the integrity of our system while supporting international students. In addition, effective immediately, applicants must provide a provincial attestation with their study permit application. At the same time, the cap will not apply to students in graduate levels of studies, including master's and doctoral students. Those are the people we're looking for. Study permit applications at the elementary and secondary school levels will also be exempt. To repeat, as of September 1st of this year, postgraduate work permits will no longer be available to public-private institution models. Thirdly, in the coming weeks, we will be announcing that open work permits will only be allowed and be available to spouses of international students enrolled in master's and doctoral programs, as well as professional programs such as medicine and law. Spouses of international students enrolled in other levels of study, including undergraduate and college programs, will no longer be eligible. To be clear, the cap will not apply to applicants within Canada looking to extend their studies, as it wouldn't be fair to prevent someone from finishing the program, nor will the cap have an effect on study permit holders currently in Canada. These temporary measures will be in place for 2 years, and the number of new study permit applications that will be accepted in 2025 will be reassessed at the end of this year. To be absolutely clear, these measures are not against individual international students. They are to ensure that as future students arrive in Canada, they receive the quality of education that they signed up for and the hope that they were provided in their home countries. It would be a disservice to welcome international students in Canada, knowing not all of them are getting the resources they need to succeed in Canada, and having them return home disillusioned and disappointed in Canada's education system. Allowing bad actors to continue their operations would be a disservice to all the good institutions who pride themselves in providing a top-tier academic experience. Thank you. Looking forward to the questions.
Can you clarify, Minister? Will we see, so right now we have over 1 million foreign students. Are the measures you are unveiling today, does that mean there will be less students as of September, or is it that the increase will be slower? And how many students will we see by the end of this year in Canada?
So you asked sort of 3 things, Marika.
Permits are issued on a 3-year basis. So the 1 million number is the number of permits that have been issued over a 3-year period. Those people that are getting out of the 3-year programs will be reflected in it'll be a reflection of a decrease, a 35% decrease compared to those people that are graduating from these programs. So the net intake will show that decrease of 35%. There's some room there to work with some of the provinces to make sure that they are actually decreasing. But what the cap actually does is twofold. It's a national cap, but it's spread out according by population by province. So some provinces will actually have some room to go up if they so choose, but the provinces that have been most heavily affected will have to decrease by about 50, and perhaps even more than 50% when it comes to new incoming people.
You have been saying that you were going to take action if the provinces didn't do what you needed them to do. Does this mean the provinces have not responded to you the way that you expected?
I'd say a couple things. Clearly, there has not been action as quickly as we wanted it to be taken. We first and foremost wanted to address the matters that were within pretty much exclusive federal jurisdiction, which are fraud, the integrity of the intake system, verification of offer letters, the putting into place of a recognized institution model, which we did in the fall. And we warned provinces throughout the fall that they needed to start taking measures. I had a very productive conversation with Minister Selina Robinson on Friday about the work that they are going, I'm not going to scoop her, but the work that they are doing in British Columbia to attack this. We don't want to trip over each other, so we're going to work with them. If we get it wrong, we'll fix it with them, and if they get it wrong, we'll be talking about that as well. But we want to coordinate our activities because it is an area of shared jurisdiction. And when it comes to making sure that these institutions are actually what they say they are and not sort of fly-by-night operations and backdoor entries into Canada, that's something that provinces have a huge role in playing. I spoke to Ontario as well with Minister Jill Dunlop. It was a good conversation, but clearly they have some work to do, but we're willing to work with them. It was, again, as well, a productive conversation. They just don't have the measures in place that, for example, British Columbia is putting into place.
What types for Ontario? The impact on Ontario, can you specify that? And then also what type
Well,
of...
yeah, look, we're working with them, but it'll be approximately 50% reduction.
On the Mexican
Rise
look,
of Mexican it's clear that we've seen increased volumes ever since we removed the visa at the beginning of our mandate. That has come with some economic benefit as well, so we shouldn't deny that. Mexico is one of our principal economic partners, so any measures that we would take, would contemplate, require a diplomatic process that is not yet completed. We certainly, it doesn't translate as well into English, but I said we certainly need to turn the screws a bit, whether it's a quarter turn or a full turn is something that's still being determined. It's something I can't share with you publicly, but know that we are not trying to be opaque, but when we take these measures, it is not something that we can necessarily discuss publicly because there are some bad actors that don't have the best interests of Canada at heart that will game the system. So we acknowledge the problem, we acknowledge that Canada has to take action, but there's some work left to do. I'll take this.
In 2 years, after these measures expire, how are you hoping that the world will be different? What's going to happen in the meantime?
Well, look, we've got 2 years to actually get the ship in order. It's a bit of a mess, and it's time to rein it in. So this is something we will, these are, even though we've put a lot of thought into this, these are still pretty much blunt measures from the federal government. We're playing with taps that we're turning on and turning off and allocating between province. So did we get it right? We'll see. But we need to work with provinces in the meantime to make sure that they are doing their jobs. There have been provincial Auditor General reports that have laid out in much more detail than I could lay out to you here today. The measures need to be taken to make sure that this is a system that has some integrity to it. It is not the intention of this program to have sham commerce degrees or business degrees that are sitting on top of a massage parlor that someone doesn't even go to, and then they come into the province and drive an Uber. If you need a dedicated channel for Uber drivers in Canada, I can design that, but that isn't the intention of an international student program. So this is something we need to rein in. They exist. Those institutions need to be shut down, and it's up to the provinces to do it.
17% more are registered?
Institutions, though, is your government concerned about the economic impact this will have on public universities and colleges?
We are, absolutely. This has been very, very lucrative, and it's certainly something that private colleges have made a lot of money out of. Again, I'm not the Minister of Post-Secondary Education Underfunding. I'm the Minister of Immigration, and clearly in the last decade or so, even longer, post-secondary institutions in Canada have been underfunded by provinces. And these institutions are smart, and they've gone and they've seen that they can get tuition fees that are 4 or 5 times more than what my kids pay at McGill or Acadia, and they've made money off it. They haven't necessarily provided the student experience that was promised to these people that brought in. And there's been the path of least resistance as well. The source countries are not particularly diverse. We've been banking on looking at the global middle class, upper middle class, and people have made money off it. So it's a system that has some real integrity issues. It has ecosystem incentives and perverse incentives, and it's something that we need to address. And then there's clear instances of people that have been just making money hand over fist about this. But again, we don't want our best top academic institutions to be penalized. It's why we have exemptions for master's and PhD students, because those are the bright people that we need to retain. And now you will hear from some provinces quite clearly that there are some trade schools that they will want to exempt or give postgraduate work permits to, because that is where some of the needs are, whether it's in nursing or healthcare or in construction. But what I say to them is we'll work with them, and we'll work with them to get this done. But